Cool. Hi. Hey. Hope you're all well nourished now after lunch break and well entertained after the Counter-Strike video. Yeah, I didn't play that because I don't play anything after 1.6. I think that was probably the best version of 1.4. So we are gonna go into the next session. But unfortunately, Cheryl Hung, who's our next speaker, couldn't make it to today's event. So we have a recording of her, and she's also dressed up in the right setting. So we're gonna be in for a treat there. So Cheryl Hung, if you don't know her, she's the director of ecosystem at the CNCF, where Kubernetes is from. And her mission is to drive engagement and growth of open source infrastructure and communities. She's a frequent keynote speaker and advises startups on developer-led growth and open source strategy. So funnily enough, I didn't know that. She started as a software engineer writing C++ on Google Maps. And then she moved into management and developer advocacy. And she also founded a meetup named Cloud Native London that some of you might have heard of, because it's like multiple thousands of people are a part of that meetup. And it's unfortunate that she's not here because she holds a master's in computer science from Cambridge, and I would have loved to talk to her about it. But anyways, we're just gonna watch the recording of her talk. We're all mad here, the state of cloud native. Ready, go.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Hung. Hello, I'm really excited to be here at Software Circus, presenting to you. I'm the Queen of Hearts, also known as Cheryl Hung, the Director of Ecosystem at the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And today I want to talk to you about the state of cloud native software, or also known as We're All Mad Here. And you can find me on Twitter at @OyCheryl. So a little bit about me. I'm a software engineer by background. I started out at Google writing C++ and deploying it using Borg. Borg, of course, later inspired Kubernetes, which is why I really believe in the power of cloud native, since I've seen it myself. At the CNCF, my mission is to drive the adoption of open source infrastructure and cloud native infrastructure. And I also founded and run one of the largest and most active meetup groups in London, Cloud Native London. At the CNCF, I primarily work with the end user community. And these are the 140 odd companies who are actively adopting cloud native. So they're from finance, retail, technology, much, much more. And today I'm going to tell you 3 stories which come from the end user community. So the first one is called It's No Use Going Back to Yesterday, because I was a different person then. And in that, I'm going to talk about how containers and Kubernetes have become mainstream and the benefits that they're bringing. The second one is called It Takes All the Running You Can Do to Keep in the Same Place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that. And in the second story, I'm going to talk about the day 2 operations and how to overcome the cultural resistance when you're changing to a SRE and DevOps mindset. And the third story is called Off With Their Heads. And in this, I'll look at some of the challenges and trends that are coming up in the next couple of years around cloud native and some of the challenges that we all still face. So as I said, I'm starting with the CNCF end users, and we're going to start by watching some of the case studies that they've kindly provided. So they'll tell their own story in their own words. So if you want to see many, many more, please go to this URL, cncf.io/newsroom/case studies. And you can read in more detail about how and why these companies are adopting cloud native, their specific challenges, and why they chose the solutions that they did. And then I'm going to look at some of the data from the last CNCF survey. So this was conducted in September and October of 2019 and received about 1,100 responses from a range of people and companies and countries. So we're going to look at some of the trends from this survey and look back over the last few years. Okay, so first story. It's no use going back to yesterday because I was a different person then. So we're going to start with a case study from ThreadUp. And ThreadUp is an online consignment store. And they're going to talk about how they've adopted containers in Kubernetes and use that to drive more frequent releases.
ThreadUp's the largest online consignment store for women's and children's clothes. We process over 2 million items every month across all our distribution centers in the US, and we use technology at the center of everything we do to get that done. When we founded ThreadUp 9 years ago, we were early on Amazon Web Services for our backend. And for the most part, those were handcrafted servers. We configured them just to get them out as fast as we could, but there was no standardization. And as we kept growing, that became a bigger and bigger chore to manage. Moving towards cloud-native technologies like Kubernetes really unlocks our ability to experiment quickly and learn from customers along the way. It's really important to a company like us who's disrupting the retail industry to make sure that as we're building software and getting it out in front of our users, we can do it on a fast cycle and learn a ton as we experiment. One of the main motivators in moving us towards this new type of infrastructure was to really make sure that our engineers could embrace the DevOps mindset as they built software. It was really important to us that they could own the life cycle from end to end, from conception at design through shipping it and running it in production. ThreadUp's a fast-growing company, so one of the things that was really important to us as we moved to Kubernetes is to enable auto-scaling in a seamless and easily manageable way. On days like Black Friday, we no longer have to sit there adding instances, monitoring the traffic, doing a lot of manual work. It's automated and it's handled for us from the system. One of the great things that Cloud Native Technologies has brought to our engineering team is unlocking their ability to write software and get it live in front of customers, delivering our value to them faster without having to worry about the nuts and bolts of what's going on under the hood. Our future is all about automation, and behind that, Cloud Native Technologies are going to unlock our ability to embrace that and go full force towards the future.
All right. So as we learned from ThreadUp, they're using containers in Kubernetes to power the change towards a DevOps mindset and to power faster releases and more automation. So let's look at some numbers and how other companies have done that same thing. So you're probably not surprised to find out that containers in Kubernetes are pretty mainstream. So these are the results from the last couple of years of the CNCF survey. And these graphs go from left to right. So the left-hand side, the pinkish one, represents 2016. And the right-hand side, the darkest bar, is the results that we got today. And what you can see is that there's been a dramatic change in the number of people who say that they're running containers in production. So it used to be only 23%, today it's 84%. You see the same trend in Kubernetes, and in fact in Kubernetes you see people are running larger clusters and more of them. So the number of people running one cluster has slightly dropped, but you see an increase in the number of people running 5, 10, even 50 and more clusters. And the main reason that people actually use cloud native is so that they can deploy faster and more reliably. So we asked people, if you use containers and cloud native projects like Kubernetes, what are the benefits that you see out of them? And the number one that people responded was the faster development time, with scalability and availability and portability coming after that. And we can also see the actual results of doing more automation. So people have started to move away from purely manual releases and towards a hybrid model. So in other words, automating parts of their continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines. And the net result of this is that it's becoming more common for people to release on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, and much less on a monthly, yearly, or less. Okay, so the second story that we're going to watch is called "It Takes All the Running You Can Do to Keep in the Same Place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that." And we're going to watch a case study from Adidas, the sports and retail company. And they're going to talk about the focusing on day two operations and how they overcame the resistance towards this new cloud native mindset.
So Kubernetes was for us a platform built by engineers for engineers. So it's really relieving the teams from really the heavy lifting task from the infrastructure, but at the same time giving them the visibility of what is behind the YAML files.
The main pain point that we were addressing was the developer experience before. So with our old process on VM based, it took developers to get a machine. It took them sometimes days or weeks. That feels like being an artist with the hands tied on the back, right? Paint a picture like that, that's impossible.
Kubernetes brings to us the possibility of being much faster in the way how we build the applications. So for example, in our e-com shop, we came from delivery cycles from 4 to 6 weeks, and now we are delivering features 4 or 5 times a day.
We guessed we will have a few people joining and it will be slowly adopted, but it was more field of dreams. So we built it and everyone came and wants to use it, and now we are overwhelmed by the demand of people joining the platform.
The usage for us of cloud native technologies has grown exponentially in the last year and a half since we really launched globally the platform. So we have right now more than 4,000 pods running in Kubernetes.
On number one, focus on day two. Choosing a technology is easy. Installing and configuring it is also something that almost everyone can do, but then operating it at scale is something that is very, very, very hard. Number two, what I would really tell anyone is don't underestimate the efforts of training.
Everyone that is able to touch a line of code at Adidas, not only our internal engineers, also some of our partners, they come to Zaragoza to our delivery, to our IT hub, and they spend a full week with us, delivering an application end-to-end. We also teach our teams to spend at least 50% of their time sitting with the delivery teams, so they really feel the pain and they are really able to direct the platforms to where the teams need that. The last advice that I will give is apply your company culture to everything that you do. For example, we are really a sports company in our DNA and we love competition. We don't like top-down mandate. We launch our DevOps Cup. So for example, where more than 220 people, engineers, are competing to be the best DevOps team.
All right, so in this video, Adidas talked to us about how they're focusing on day two operations and on getting the operations and the developer teams to adopt the DevOps mindset. So again, let's look at some of the numbers from the CNCF survey and see what the wider response was. So first off, how do you actually operate at scale? So it's not enough to just install and configure a piece of technology, you also have to maintain it. For instance, how do you separate the resource usage across multiple teams or across different business units? And what we see is that the majority of people are using namespaces to separate their applications that run on Kubernetes, but a significant proportion, about 50%, also are using separate applications on separate clusters. Auto-scaling workloads is actually fairly straightforward for stateless applications. So 75% say that they are auto-scaling their stateless workloads. But what we saw is that it's much harder to auto-scale task and queue processing, stateful applications, batch jobs, and in particular databases. And we asked the question, if you use monitoring and logging and tracing, are you running this within your infrastructure, or are you using a remote service, a hosted service? And we see that there's a definite bias towards running it on-prem within your own infrastructure. But we also saw that the majority of people were using some form of monitoring and tracing, monitoring and logging, but there's a significant portion of people who do not use any kind of tracing infrastructure. And lastly, we asked people, what are the challenges that you see with using and deploying containers? And the most widespread answer that people gave was handling the cultural changes with the development team. And I hope that that Adidas video gave you some ideas about how to have your operations and developer teams, application teams sit together to use your company culture to really embrace and change the company mindset as relates to technology. And some of the other challenges that we still see is security and complexity and the lack of training. But compared to the last few years, problems like monitoring, networking, and storage have gone down a little bit over time. And this is probably because there are more and more tools out there that are making these problems easier. The last story that we're going to hear is called Off With Their Heads. And in this one, we're going to see some footage from the US Air Force and how they see the rise of DevSecOps, or in other words, adding security in through the DevOps pipeline, and how they're using Istio and Service Mesh.
DoD Enterprise DevSecOps Initiative is a joint team with the DoD CIO, OSD, the Air Force, and DISA. So we're really trying to streamline the process and what it takes to take a program to DevSecOps using Kubernetes and OCI compliant containers. So giving us the ability to move faster and be able to continuously push software and update software, particularly when it comes to AI and machine learning and cyber offense and defense is critical. For us, of course, security is a must. That's why we call it DevSecOps. The Sec is not just doing some static dynamic analysis on your code. That's a given. We're going to the continuous monitoring side of the house with zero trust baked in, with a behavior detection model, really pushing the envelope when it comes to security, and kind of merging the best practices on the cyber side with the DevSecOps community. We went to the team and said, can you put Kubernetes and Istio on the jet? And we didn't want to change the hardware of the jet, so that's legacy hardware, no cheating, that had to be able to boot from scratch in 2 minutes with the microservices and the Istio stack running. And what was incredible is the team was able to bring Go, Java, Python, and modern programming languages using microservice architecture as well. So we had Go running on the jet, which is a big difference from Ada. So we were able to do that in 45 days. It's pretty incredible because once you can deploy fast and iterate and learn fast and fail fast but don't fail twice for the same reason. I think the key aspect there is that it's compounding the time savings, and it's very tough to have a very precise number, but we're thinking at least 100 years was saved across the 37 programs already. If Kubernetes is good enough for the DoD and our weapon systems, it's certainly good enough for your business.
Okay, so in this case study, we saw that the US Air Force is using the DevSecOps, adopting DevSecOps, and also using Istio to run the Istio stack within their fighter jets. So DevSecOps is a hard one to talk numbers about because DevSecOps is not really about what tools do you use, it's more about what processes you have around them. But I wanted to point out two particular pieces of news that have come out in the last few months and really show some of the maturity around DevSecOps. So there are two security projects within CNCF that have graduated or gone to incubation, which means that they're seeing wider adoption and they're becoming more mature. So the first one is called TUF, or the Update Framework, and this is for ensuring that the software that you're deploying is really the software that you're expecting. So the image verifiability. And the second one is called Falco. And Falco is a runtime security project, which means that as your software is running, can you set policies to ensure that the system's not any unexpected system behavior, you can catch it and you can do something about it. So if you are looking at DevSecOps, these two projects might be of interest to you. And service mesh is a new topic to the CNCF survey. 2019 was the first time that we asked a question about how you're using service mesh. And we asked people to choose from this list of projects. And what we saw is that even though there's a lot of interest in these, and Istio is the highest one, a significant number of people are evaluating and a relatively small number who are using in production across all of these projects. But we expect this to change in the next few years. So we expect to see bigger purple bars here to say more people are using it in production. All right, so a bit of a conclusion and summary of what we're doing, or in the sense of we're all mad here. So first we saw how ThreadUp is adopting containers in Kubernetes, and they're really trying to bring the DevOps mindset to their teams and automate as much as possible, which allows them to bring more frequent releases and bring value to their customers. The second one we watched is from Adidas, and Adidas told us you should focus on not just installing and configuring Kubernetes clusters, but how do you actually operate that at scale? And to use your company culture to get and training to get the teams to understand how this will work. And then the third one we watched from the US Air Force is showing how DevSecOps is also becoming a bigger community and a bigger interest. And the service mesh is still maturing, but we expect it to grow over the next few years. So now I'd like to ask you to help us. So we have the CNCF survey for 2020 out now. In fact, it closes tomorrow. So please go to this link, the SurveyMonkey form, and fill in the cloud native survey and help other people understand how cloud native is being adopted. We have many more case studies like this, which you should go to the CNCF case study page and read and watch some of the others. And if you have a really interesting story that you'd like to tell, we'd love to work with you to tell that. So you can email casestudies@cncf.io, and we'll do all the hard work. We'll interview you and we'll write everything up and approve. You can approve it, and then we'll publish it on the CNCF website. And if you go to that CNCF case study page and scroll to the bottom, you'll find a link that will tell you all of the guidelines about how it works and how long the process takes, which is usually a few weeks. And last but not least, of course, KubeCon, like everything else, is now a virtual event, and it's coming up on August 17th to the 20th. And we will not be able to get together in person, but still it would be great to see you there at the virtual event. So please go to kubecon.io and register for that. Thank you so much for your time. These slides are on my blog at oicheryl.com, and it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to all of you.
Okay, so I think we're back now. Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. Even though you couldn't be with us today, unfortunately, but I love that you still did the recording for us in your lovely Queen of Hearts outfit. So yeah, we're obviously not going to have a Q&A now, but this will give me actually some time to quickly remind you of all the cool stuff that's happening right now on Brella, the event platform that I hope you joined. So you can, first of all, if you go to the More tab, you can also see all the activities like the raffle and the costume contest and how you can take part in that. So just go to the left, More, the 3 dots, and then check out the raffles, the costume contests, how to follow on Twitter, and so on. Also, we would love you to talk to people. I know it's a bit awkward maybe, but you have to actually, if you think that someone's interesting to talk to, maybe you are matched and share the same interests, then if you suggest a meeting to them at any time, then they can decline the meeting suggestion, but still leave the chat open. So I know it's a bit kind of like intimate, weirdly like strange to, you know, schedule a meeting with a complete stranger, but you can just schedule meetings, then hope that they decline it, but leave the chat open, and then you can just chat. So that would be great. Or you just chat directly in the stream, so next to the stream videos, or go to the sponsor booth. So if you click on sponsors, then you can go to the virtual booths. There's a chat, there's all kinds of stuff that the sponsors uploaded. And also there you can like see all the people from that company, and you can click on suggest meeting there as well. Cool. So I think we're going to go to the next break, and at 2 we'll have Uberto Abardini here speaking about tests in his talk, Beyond Acceptance Testing, Domain-Driven Tests. So see you in about 13 minutes.